Johnny Carson's The Tonight Show was more than just a late-night program. It became an icon in American popular culture. It firmly established Johnny Carson as a television icon for 30 years and enthralled viewers. Joan Rivers and Wayne Newton were among the A-listers that performed, creating unforgettable moments that drew in audiences. But there was less polish than met the eye behind all the charisma and humor. Backstage drama involving Carson's notorious rage would occasionally reach the public eye. One frightening event included a visitor who went too far, leading to a lifelong suspension from the show. Not even the king of late night could ignore it. John William Carson, born in Corning, Iowa on October 23, 1925, sprang from modest origins to become a worldwide superstar. His family had previously lived in a number of small Midwestern communities before settling in Norfolk, Nebraska. Carson had an innate talent for show business from an early age. His interest in performing began when he was 12 years old, when he happened upon a book on magic. He quickly began to astound his relatives with his card tricks. His mother saw his passion and made him a cape. He began performing as the legendary Carsoni when he was 14 years old, making just $3 every performance. After high school, Carson followed his early ambition and adventurous spirit to Hollywood. However, his path took a surprising detour when he was fined $50 for pretending to be a midshipman. Retelling the story only served to solidify his place in folklore. Took part in the United States Army in 1943. He was an ensign commissioned by the Navy during World War II, after completing officer training in the V-12 Navy College program. He was assigned the responsibility of deciphering encrypted messages while serving aboard the USS Pennsylvania. Interestingly, he maintained an undefeated record of 15-0-1 in amateur boxing throughout his military tenure, with the majority of his bouts occurring aboard ship. The time Carson did a magic performance for James Verstoorstel, the Navy Secretary, was one of his most memorable Navy experiences. Carson said he wanted to become a magician when asked if he intended to remain in the Navy. Carson made an impression with his quick-witted performance in response to Forrestal's challenge to demonstrate his abilities. That was the moment that proved he could make even the most solemn crowd laugh. Carson attended the University of Nebraska-Lincoln after the war, taking advantage of the military's educational perks. At first, he planned to be a comedy writer and major in journalism. However, he quickly changed his major to speech and drama after finding that radio was his genuine passion. The analytical approach to humor was on display in his college thesis, How to Write Comedy for Radio, which included taped sketches and explanations of comic approaches. He was able to earn a bachelor's degree in radio and voice with a physics minor in just 3 years because to this initiative. When Carson first began broadcasting in 1950, she had a huge hit. Throughout his time in Omaha, Nebraska, with Wham and Wow TV, his satirical bent and quick mind were on full display in his morning TV show, The Squirrel's Nest. Among the most memorable parts was the part where the local political corruption was comically exposed through the interview of birds on the courthouse roof. Local events began to feature him as a host due to his unique talent for combining comedy with current affairs. Mingling with celebrities he has previously mocked on television. In 1951, Carson was fortunate enough to get a job at KNXT, a CBS-owned TV station, in Los Angeles through the wife of a mock congressman. He began his low-budget but witty sketch comedy show Carson's Cellar, 1951-1953, which attracted the attention of famous comedians. Red Skelton was one of Carson's idols. In 1953, he recruited Carson to write for him. The next year, Carson got his big break when Skelton passed out right before a live broadcast, which was completely unexpected. After being called upon at the last minute, Carson demonstrated his quick thinking and ability to captivate an audience. even when faced with adversity. In 1955, Carson was invited to appear on his show by another comedic star, Jack Benny, who had seen his talent. Jokingly, accused the seasoned comedian of mimicking him while emulating Benny's mannerisms. Benny later recalled this incident when he predicted Carson's successful comedic future. Carson hosted a number of series in the 1950s, including Earn Your Vacation, 1954, a game show, and The Johnny Carson Show, a variety show. Changing Your Career, the show. The late-night television industry was in its early 1960s infancy. In 1954, The Tonight Show debuted on NBC, with the astute host Steve Allen laying the groundwork for what would later become the prototypical American talk show. After Allen departed in 1957, the show was taken over by Jack Paar, who introduced a more candid and occasionally surprising approach. Tonight, though, needed a replacement host by 1962. Johnny Carson was a rising talent that NBC was eyeing. Who Do You Trust had already established Carson as a household name. Was where his charisma and wit made him a sought-after TV personality. Still, he was hesitant to accept the job offer from NBC at first. It was intimidating to think that we could keep the country engaged for 105 minutes a night by interviewing famous people. Notable actors such as Groucho Marx, Joey Bishop, Jackie Gleason, Bob Newhart, and Jackie Gleason had previously declined the part. However, in early 1962, after much persistence, finally signed on. Carson couldn't assume control right away because he still had 6 months left on his deal with ABC. Up until October 1, 1962, when Carson finally made his debut, the show was hosted by a revolving cast of guests, including Marx, Merv Griffin, Jerry Lewis, and Donald O'Connor. It was a challenging adjustment at first. There were a lot of growing pains in Carson's first year, and he doubted his ability to be the show's main attraction. However, as he became comfortable in his role, he started to revolutionize late-night television by combining humor, intelligence, and an exceptional talent for elevating even the most uninteresting guests to stardom. Carson is the best by the simple law of survival, Billy Wilder remarked about Carson at one point. Those who are unable to get up at the crack of dawn, those who suffer from insomnia, and the invalids are all enchanted by him. He is both a nation's Nembutal and its Valium. He is tasked with giving life and humor to the show's most villainous characters, regardless of their type. He must serve as both their surgeon and nurse. He must perform the salto mortal nightly for an audience of millions. Plus, he manages to accomplish it unaided. The show that Carson was hosting wasn't the only thing for him. An institution was being molded by him. Under his direction, The Tonight Show adopted a more polished format that would become the norm for late-night television. And classic introduction, Here's Johnny, was delivered by Ed McMahon, Carson's longtime companion from Who Do You Trust, who also served as his sidekick and announcer. The show's signature rhythm was created by musical interludes conducted by Skitch Henderson of the NBC Orchestra. Each episode began with Carson's A Nightly Ritual, a monologue that offered biting current affairs comedy. He was quite good at coming up with self-deprecating jokes when his more serious jokes didn't land. A misstep might be transformed into a giggle with one of his go-to moves, a light-hearted soft shoe dance to Tea for Two, which was cued by the band. The use of a close-up microphone and deadpanning was another technique. Clear out aisle 4, cart customers. Even the most uncomfortable situations were made entertaining by his natural charisma and improvisational skills. A charming hallmark of Carson's monologue was his ghost golf swing, a little carefree motion. From time to time, guest hosts would make fun of it. Take Bob Newhart as an example. He once pretended to roll a bowling ball. Paul Anka reworked his song Toot Sweet for the show, Johnny's theme, which serves as the theme music. Carson was entitled to 50% of the performance rights since he had written lyrics for The Tonight Show before he took over, even if they were never utilized. From his debut broadcast in 1962 until his final broadcast on May 22, 1992, that theme did not alter. May 1, 1972 was a watershed moment for The Tonight Show, which had previously aired from NBC's 30 Rockefeller Plaza offices in New York, moving to Burbank, Pasadena, California. The move brought the performance closer to Hollywood, which improved its accessibility for booking A-list celebrities. The format came under Carson's control as his influence expanded. To make room for a rotating cast of guest hosts on Mondays, he reduced his hosting duties to 4 nights a week in 1980. The episodes were taped at 5:30 p.m. in Burbank, at 11:30 p.m. and transmitted by satellite to the Central and Eastern time zones. Viewers in Pacific Time got a delayed broadcast at 11:30 p.m. The opportunity to do so. Johnny Carson's The Tonight Show had expanded beyond its late-night roots by the 1970s. The American television industry relied on it. Carson's impact went well beyond the studio and was evident in the fields of humor, celebrity culture, and broadcasting. It was April 1979 when Johnny Carson announced he was leaving The Tonight Show. After 17 years on the job, his announcement sent shockwaves across the industry. The show was more than simply a late-night mainstay back then. Estimates put its pre-tax profit at 17%